is for the future of esports streaming and new content mediums. We'll let everyone on the panel introduce themselves, starting from Garvey over there, and we'll go there.
Hi, I'm Garvey. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships at Twitch.
Hey, I'm Justin. I'm the CEO of Ader.
We got one over here. Hey guys, I'm Patrick Dees. I'm the co-founder and chief gaming officer of the fan-controlled football league.
And my name is Anne Hand. I'm the CEO of Super League. Were you hoping we were going to say a lot more than that?
No. So my name is Royce, Disini. I'm the founder of Mobcrush. I think just for everyone in the room, it'd be great to just give context of like your role and like the company, right? We'll start with that.
So Twitch is a social platform, 200 million active users, consuming about 2.5 hours of content a day. Supposed to create that live, interactive, and social experience. And currently I founded and run the Twitch student program, which focuses on education, business, and esports at universities and high schools in 23 countries, going on 40 by next year.
I'm Justin. I'm the CEO of Ader, and basically we're a management and advertising agency. So we manage a bunch of Twitch and YouTube influencers, and then we also work with a lot of top-tier brands to help them enter and sponsor esports personalities.
The fan-controlled, well, first of all, I love the way you're sitting. I feel like I need to just get comfortable like that, right? It's pretty great. So the fan-controlled football league, we are building, it's good, right? Like, I think we should try garbage all over it. The fan-controlled football league, we are building Madden in real life. So essentially, building a league of actual football players, built from the ground up that like fans run the teams. They choose the logo, the mascot, the colors, all of those things, but then they go and they call plays in real time. It's like you're playing a video game. Games are an hour long. We kick off in the middle of next year. All 8 teams are going to be in Vegas, and yeah, that's me.
And Super League Gaming was founded about 3.5 years ago. The premise was that with all the excitement at the professional esports level, that it would be inevitable that feeder systems would emerge. And so we run youth leagues, so kind of think of it as a little league product, introducing kids under 14 to the notion of esports and to a different way to kind of enjoy the games that they love. And then we also run young adult and adult leagues as well, kind of more of a minor league system.
Great, thank you. So we're looking forward to kick off the panel. Just to give everyone a heads up, we've broken down a set of questions, right? Like there's the first set of like just get everyone caught up on like what everyone is seeing from their respective products and platforms in terms of trends, innovations. So like current state, and then the latter part, we're gonna open up like, hey, what is it that we're seeing and take a peek to the future. So we have those 2 areas, and then we're going to open it up for a Q&A through the floor. So that's the general format, and if everyone's ready, we'll go kick it off. So the first one is regarding trends and innovations, right? The interesting things, like at least from what we're seeing in the Mobcrush side, just the past 6 months alone, like we saw from 0 to about half of the stream being streamed through our platform are the genre for Battle Royale, right? So like we're seeing a lot of like PUBG streams, a lot of like Fortnite streams just start from 0 to where it is right now, almost half of the streams that we're seeing. So we'd love to hear from each of you, what are the general trends and innovations that each of you are seeing on your platform?
Do you want to take a minute and talk a little bit about what Mobcrush is?
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely. I want people to know.
So Mobcrush, I started the company about 4 years ago. The mission, and thank you for that, Patrick. The mission of the company is frictionless distribution and monetization of live video, right? So we've got like 3 sets of products. The first one is a multicasting capability for creators. So when we started the company, we started asking the game streamers and creators and teams that we have on our platform, what are your core pain points? And they were like, at this day and age, like we stream to Twitch. If we have a YouTube channel in the afternoon, we have to cut up the, spend time to edit the video and upload there and get some advertising revenue. And then at the end of the day, like we still have to engage our audiences, whether Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, etc. Right? So we looked at that, like, hey, like, if we can give you a button that goes like in a single tap of a button, share your content across platforms and engage your audiences everywhere. win. So that's, we have the multicasting capability with one touch. And then the other portion of that is monetization. So I know other platforms are doing the tipping, subscription, right? And we looked at that, so hey, like this big opportunity. I think it dovetails into the first panel's a lot of the conversation. There's an untapped 150 billion brand advertising dollar that's shifting to digital. How do we connect those brands and you've got some experience in that space as part of the business model. How do you connect it with the creators and audiences in the gaming and sports space? So in a nutshell, that's what we do. And next one.
And your question again, because I've got the attention span of an Irish setter, I literally forgot the question.
All right. So the question again is regarding trends and innovations, right? So from each of the platforms, please share with us what are the general trends and innovations that you're seeing. You can share with us some of the insights on your respective platforms and products. So, Anna, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so we've run about 2,000 live event experiences to date in the last few years. The platform has always been designed to be an online to offline platform. So the platform doesn't care where you're sitting, but we do as a brand. We think that better gaming happens when you're physically together. And again, we're going after the competitive amateur gamer. So we're talking about 1 billion gamers around the world, not just the 13,000 or so elite professionals. And so with that, a big part of the brand is having a distributed network of retail partners that are able to spin up more Super League experiences. Again, when you game together in person, a lot of the toxicity and harassment comes out of gaming, skill progression is faster, and it's just more fun, is our point of view. And so I think what we're seeing right now is the beginning of some infrastructure that's starting to emerge for the amateur scene. 2-3 years ago when Super League was kicking off, even just using the word esports, people, only thought of that as a term about the professional level. And so the good news is we kind of got to shape some of that narrative by getting out early. And what we're seeing now is some of the infrastructure starting to come in to support the amateur scene.
It's a unique question for us because we haven't kicked off yet. So trends as far as, but we are like a forward-looking league, right? We're rethinking football from the ground up. And I mean this for this audience, but just in general, from a gaming audience. Football fans in the audience here? Show your hands. All right, it's pretty good. You never know with these crowds, right? Like a lot of gamers. When I talk about to get here, that's true, right? I don't know much about football. Here I am starting a professional football league. I know what I learned. I learned entirely through playing that. I grew up with my father, and he's like literally the best dude on the planet. He's an amazing father. Knows zero about professional sports. He was a choir guy and like into drama. So I would play Madden and sit with my father on Sundays and tell him what was going on the football field, right? Like this is a 4-3, a 3-4 prevent defense that I learned all through playing Madden. So for me, the play calling experience, that real-time engagement, that lean forward has always been part of my sports experience. And so since forever, I've wanted that real-time engagement. I think that's what, you talk about trends and kind of looking forward. They said on the last panel, I think, we need to do a better job as esports in thinking through how do we engage viewers, right? Like how do we, I think he said we're all like stick and ball and we hang back and it's this lean back experience. And we want to change that. Really, like the game's an hour. We need to be in and out. Like nobody's got time for a 3.5 hour football game anymore. They just don't. So games are an hour long. Anybody big fans of the kicking game in football? Never seen a hand to that question. We're doing away with kicking. And again, the whole league is kind of that looking forward. But I think if you asked about like what trends that we're seeing is like, I think it's really all about audience engagement and enjoying that moment to moment as opposed to hanging back and kind of that passive experience. So.
I'm going to speak a little bit about influencer marketing and the trends in that industry rather than just traditional esports and live streaming. I think Twitch can speak a little better to that than I can. Right now is the golden age for influencer marketing. When I dropped out of college 3 years ago, it was the golden age for entrepreneurship. Now everyone seems to claim they're an entrepreneur. And I think within a few years, everyone's going to claim they're an influencer, even if only one person's following them on Twitter. So I guess I qualify, right? I got 10. But the big change in influencer marketing right now is the representation. It used to be that if you want to work with an influencer or a content creator, you could have a direct relationship. Or if you work with a manager, it'd be their best friend, and your communication would be slow, email would take 10 or 15 days to get a response. What we're seeing right now in Twitch, and I think in general, is a much faster response time, more management of influencers, and the industry is quickly becoming professionalized in a way I couldn't have imagined it becoming 2 years ago. As Ader's grown its own suite, we started off not representing any talent. In the last year, we've become one of the larger representation offices for Twitch talent. One of the reasons for that is that that's where the industry is going. Everyone I know, from Lyric to Crypt, now has a manager, people who never would have taken a manager before. Because they're seeing dollars and sponsorship, but more importantly, they're recognizing that they don't have the time to manage business relationships the way they need to be managed. So I say the biggest change in my industry is the movement towards professional representation.
I'm a big advocate of professional representation for almost a decade now. And I would always tell people, I don't understand why you don't want to use professional representation because they take 15 or 20%. I'd always tell them 80% of something is a whole lot more than 100% of nothing, right? So trends and innovations with Twitch, we focus really on two things, content and engagement. Content is kind of like a back to the future kind of innovation and trend. I'm sure a lot of you know we started as Justin TV. It was a hodgepodge of content. When it came time to take a proof of concept into a business model, what we noticed in 2008, 2009 was that the gaming content was getting exponentially more viewership than anything else on the platform. So when it came time to create a business and try to employ people and innovate and follow our dreams, it made sense to focus on gaming. We're all gamers, love it with all our heart, eat, sleep, breathe, and drink it. So we started Twitch, focused on gaming, but as you can see in 2014, we started creative, kicked it off with a Bob Ross marathon. I believe in the first week on Twitch, we got more viewership than 20 years of Bob Ross on PBS, which was quite interesting. So now we're really focusing on shoulder wrap content, IRL, and different kinds of ways to look at traditional linear media in a new live, interactive, and social way. We had a Doctor Who marathon, did very well. I would see scientific discussions in the Twitch chat on the viability of Doctor Who technology. I was just like, what?
Don't ever underestimate the Whovians, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
They represent.
So I think that's the trend with content. We listen to our community. We want to know what else they're interested in. We want to introduce the concept of even older content becoming live, interactive, and social. And that's what it really is, right? It's like-minded individuals gathering, whether it's 100, 500, 1,000, 20,000. They speak the same vernacular, they have the same interests, and it's a gathering ground for people to discuss the content they like to watch. In terms of engagement, I think it's really important. As late as 2014, I believe having good product and good service was enough to do good business. It's not anymore, it hasn't been. I always say that this industry operates in dog years. 1 year in this industry, 7 years anywhere else in the world. So now there's a new part of the equation that's just as important. It's product, service, and the experience using the product and service. So this is what we focus on a lot. I like a lot of people talk about engagement. It's the differentiation point between traditional linear and passive consumption of content and what we do. So how do we engage? And we engage by creating tools. And that's really what Twitch is, right? We don't really create content. We're a toolbox to service a community of broadcasters that want to engage their community a little bit more deeply. On the other hand, there's tools for the community to optionally fund or support those broadcasters so they'll create more content. So I think that's just really important, is that we always focus on what content do people want in this live interactive and social experience, and what tools can we create that will allow broadcasters to more deeply engage their community and the community to optionally support that broadcaster. So I think that's back to the future kind of thing.
You just even think about the importance of engaging youth. If you ask an 8-year-old, do you know what esports is, they might not say they know what it is. But if you ask them if they're a gamer, and if they identify as a competitive gamer, they say yes. And so not only are we seeing a wide psychographic mix of people interested in gaming and all the diversity of gamers, but because gaming now is something you're not going to grow out of, because we're seeing the multi-generational impact starting to kick in, because of the importance that we are cultivating the future professional esports fan by educating people, you know, earlier in their kind of gaming lifestyle. I'm just starting to see just a very different kind of audience than what we saw consuming esports and gaming content 3-4 years ago.
That's interesting. We have almost 200 million active users. Average median age is 26 years old. But I'm 48 years old, and whenever I get a free minute, I'm gaming. If I'm on the road, I'm watching Twitch on my phone and still interacting with the community. So it's kind of universal. I don't know if anybody remembers Piano Man on Twitch. He was 68 years old, retired, could play any video game theme song on the piano live, and he did extremely, extremely well. If he didn't know a song, they could put it in chat, he'd listen with a link, he'll listen to it one time and be able to replicate it on a piano like instantly. And he had great viewership, great engagement, and he enjoyed himself sitting in his living room by himself on his piano, interacting with 25,000 young people. It was just amazing.
Thank you. So that's interesting, right? So we're hearing, like, it started out as like just a core gamer like audience, and what I'm hearing, like, and the rest of the panels, like, it's moving to like other areas of the markets and segments in terms of like, hey, is it age, is it like different like demographic, psychographic segments it's moving into, and it dovetails with what I shared, like we're seeing in our platform for Mobcrush, like, you know, like we saw like the Mobile games, FBSs to the initial like communities, but we started seeing like, hey, it's a younger demo that's like a mobile first demo that's now cross-platform. We started seeing games like Fortnite and PUBG that are moving to mobile as well, and you know, just making it frictionless and accessible opens up the audience and segments, right? So super interesting. There's the topic on the viewer and content engagement that you brought up, Harvey, and dovetails into our second question, right? So the theme of like real-time interaction, which we saw on Twitch, real-time chat with likes, right? So you get the engagement. One of the things that when I talk to folks in the industry, right, like as this trend goes from gaming and the larger, broader set of like other types of content, what if like you could talk to Daenerys Targaryen while you're watching Game of Thrones and have that engagement? So it's an interesting take, right? Like layering in real-time engagement, real-time interaction, and real-time influence, which I think Patrick has something that's part of your play. So the question here is like, how is the viewing experience evolving? What are the biggest breakthroughs that we're seeing? And what are the steps being made to enhance the consumer viewing experience focused on live or hybrid and you know, just I just want to open up the floor. So wants to go through.
I'll own that one. First of all, I think great money to talk to Danny on Game of Thrones in real time. That'd be pretty great. I can't wait for this coming season. So yeah, I think one of my favorite things, we've got a 2-year exclusive deal with Twitch with Game of the Week carved out for linear. But we engaged Twitch immediately, but of course this is teed up well for Twitch in kind of the future of broadcast. But we had a proof of concept team in 2016, and that league we were in was traditional football. It was one fan-run team versus a bunch of traditionally run teams, and they had some deal with YouTube, and we're like, literally, this has to live on Twitch. It just has to. And it was right about the time. You guys remember Twitch Plays Pokemon? It was just insane. Yeah. So Twitch Plays Football. We went down. We flew to San Francisco and talked to Twitch. Said, hey, we want to integrate with chat and like have our plays be called through chat. And so did. It was outrageously successful. 100 different countries called plays for this obscure little team in minor league football in Salt Lake. And so it was very evident that we need to leave that league and start our own. But I think from an innovation perspective and kind of next steps, you heard for years that there's a second and third screen experience, and I think that's going away. I think we're going to see a convergence of second and third screen, and it's going to be one. And I think Twitch is really pioneering this extension, right? This graphical overlay that can exist in real time that you can interact with. For example, how we're using that, and you guys have seen other examples of the Overwatch League and the NBA G League. We're using it to call plays, right? So you'll be able to like have your 4 plays on screen you'll be able to choose from. You'll mouse over it and see it diagrammed on the field in real time, again, like it's Madden. And I think those second and third screens are going away. You'll be able to interact with our players on screen, follow them on Twitch, take polls, all of these things, and like really manage your game experience all through interacting with Twitch. I think that is one of the coolest things that's happening, you know, in broadcast right now. Go Twitch.
I think the real big breakthrough for us has been extensions. So again, I consider Twitch a toolbox. Everything's optional, right? This is a free-to-play industry with optional microtransactions built in. That's the finance model of 90% of this industry. You can see it from cosmetic items in games to you know, subbing on Twitch. But extensions is really cool. As our broadcaster base grew, as our community grew exponentially, this year has been just completely mind-blowing. Our developers could not create tools fast enough for our broadcasters to uniquely engage their community and for the community to support. So we built a tool that allows people to create tools on Twitch, extensions, right? So you can literally create any kind of experience, live experience. An extension's like an app. It's an app for a Twitch channel. And now it doesn't only make the content live, interactive, and social, it makes your channel itself, the information boxes underneath it, live, interactive, and social. There's some great extensions that's already up. Of course, they're all free. These third-party developers do have the option of selling it on the platform. But I'm a free-to-play kind of guy. I think it's really valuable that it's universal and as close to free as humanly possible to make it easily accessible to a wide and diverse community all over the world. But it's just really amazing when you think about the creativity that you can express through an extension and be able to uniquely identify with a game, with a broadcaster, with the channel itself. I mean, even something simple as a scrolling schedule box instead of this static box. Now it becomes interactive. You can scroll through a schedule, you can click on it, and it'll come up with a description. If you like it, you can click another button, it adds it to your Google Calendar, so you get a reminder so you don't miss content. That's just utility, right? But you were talking about overlays where you can call plays or get statistics in real time, and it's statistics you want, not what somebody else thinks you want, right? This customability, this interaction in real time, I think it's the best thing since sliced bread.
Is sliced bread that good?
Oh God, it depends on the bread, and if you put a little butter on it and cheese and deep fry it, yeah.
Well, for Super League, you know, obviously we run our online and live event experiences, but really at our core we're a pretty big content engine. So this year we'll have about 500,000 hours of amateur competitive gameplay run through our platform. And we're curating that content in a really unique perspective because we think one of the other kind of unmet demands right now in the esports ecosystem is more elite, highly produced amateur gameplay. And so of those 500,000 hours, not every hour is the most compelling gameplay, but you know, if you just imagine that just 5–10% is really kind of starting to show a run of gameplay just below the professional level, we think there's an opportunity to put a little production value around that and create in a way not just a path for aspiring professionals to get a spotlight shown on it, but also the aspiring shoutcasters and all the other essential parts of what makes a great broadcast for esports. So we spun up our Super League TV channel on Twitch a few months ago and just started to populate that and trial some different types of interesting amateur esports content as well.
It's louder than I expected, sorry guys. I'm going to answer this question by opening it up a little bit to the audience. I think that a lot of people are here probably because they're interested in entering esports and live streaming in the gaming environment. And I actually think that the fan engagement element, how a fan can engage with Twitch, is one of the biggest challenges left in the industry. As content creators become more and more popular, the engagement that they have with one-on-one fan becomes less and less. And because Twitch is fundamentally a popularity contest, FanVest, where once you're one of the largest streamers, you kind of attain and grow just because of the way that there's no algorithm. You tune into Twitch, you see the largest content creator, right? And it means that engagement from a fan perspective becomes harder the more popular the content creator you watch. And I think this is a huge challenge. I think there's a lot of ways to address it. One of my favorites is talk shows. I love the idea of some of these newer content creators, especially in the IRL category, that are doing talk shows with other live streamers, podcasts, etc. And that needs to be opened up to the fan. It needs to be giving a fan an opportunity to connect with a content creator live. Right now we have these awesome conferences. We have TwitchCon coming up soon. I encourage you all to buy a ticket. It's going to be a blast. But outside of these outside of these in-person conferences, how are you engaging with these larger stars? So one thing I'd love to see is more podcasts, more communication between content creators and their fans in a live setting. And I encourage everyone here in the audience to think about how you can make the engagement between a fan and a star easier, because the larger the celebrity on Twitch, the harder it is to engage with them on a one-on-one basis. And when most of us think about what we love about Twitch, it's the moments we have when we feel closest to the content creator. That's what makes live streaming so special.
Good point. And you know, dovetails to our next question, right? Like, what steps are we taking, or we can take in the space to enhance that consumer engagement, right? Whether it be economically or not?
What steps? It's really interesting. So we listen, right? We don't just randomly create tools. We don't just randomly pick content to put on for monetization. We listen. That's what TwitchCon is essentially for. It's a gathering place of broadcasters and community, and we kind of sit in the background and eavesdrop. And we just listen. What are they talking about? What are they interested in? I think that's really important, not to listen, but to be an active listener. A lot of people listen just to wait for a pause in a sentence for them to say what they want to say. Active listening is really listening to what people have to say, trying to understand their perspective, and then identifying with it, so you could incorporate what you believe in as well. And that's what we do with the platform. So that's what we've always done. We're cognizant of what everybody else does, but we listen to our community, we listen to our broadcasters. And I think that's the way that we're always going to evolve, is as our community grows, becomes more diverse, becomes more inclusive, we just listen. I love the idea about talk shows as well. I love podcasts, but I still think that a podcast can be, we have a talk show section on Twitch directory, and I think it can be utilized more, because again, it gives the ability for the broadcasters to listen to their community, and that active listening will enable better and more engaging content to come out. And it's really win-win-win for everybody, I think, is you're heard, and on the other side, you understand. And that's super important. I think it's one of the lost skills in this world, active listening. So I'm a big fan of effective communication. I taught 2 years of effective communication in business. So I'm a big proponent of just always advocating, be a good communicator, and it all starts with active listening. And of course, you know, empathy and stuff like that, but you're not gonna empathize with something you're not listening to, right?
I guess I'd say, you know, one of the things that we've done at Super League is we've kind of tried to tap into what we thought was that missing locality of gaming. So we have a city-based league system, and that's enabled us to start curating these very local leagues. So I think one of the different ways or different dimensions we add to our consumer engagement is we kind of add that kind of desire to represent and root for your hometown element. And so a lot of our content that you'll see on Twitch, on our channel, is really kind of city rivalry content starting to come out. And also by building those different communities in those 16 cities, it's a lot more user-generated content. It's, you know, the passionate guy who plays for the Dallas Dynamite doing a throwdown on that given night against somebody in Miami with the Miami Menace that he rivals. So we're seeing that in between our more formal seasons for our league in the spring and fall, it's much more UGC, but it's a lot of times it's playing off of that city rivalry that we sparked through our league. User-generated content. I had said it earlier, so I didn't know if I then put in parentheses UGC. It's, you know, I'm trying to be cool like you.
I could listen to Ann talk the entire panel, personally. Actively, I would definitely be right here. So I think I just love what you guys are doing, and no, I think you're one of the better voices in the space. I think so. Driving engagement. So we're clearly not a platform yet. What I can tell you is our belief that in this league, right, like everybody gets a vote. So on every play, on everything, not every vote is created equal. So to drive engagement, what we do, you're actually rewarded by engaging more. So you have what they call a fan IQ. So if you've been calling plays for all season, and I started today, your vote probably will carry 30, 40 times more weight than mine during the course of a season, right? As you're participating, you're choosing plays and logos and mascots and colors, all of those things, and you're rewarded. There's an even accelerator based on choosing good plays for your team. And so, so there's that piece of it. And then you asked also about economically. I think the other thing that I think is a challenge, and we're going to talk a little bit about it later if we have time, because everybody in this panel is a little long-winded, would be monetization. And I think like one of the challenges this space is facing is kind of gross monetization practices. So we firmly believe this is a free-to-play game as you're watching, but we do want to ensure that that there are like community achievements that will unlock certain things, right? So if you're looking for merch, and we're building in community achievements based on like when as a group we achieve 1,000 yards on the ground, shirts will be 30% off. Something that you can work together as a community, so it's not this gross exploitative thing, that there's a sense of community to drive engagement, both economically and free to play.
So I want to talk a little bit about the two things that I think make, and just to clarify, this is how we can improve the customer experience, right? The viewer experience. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. When I think about improving the viewer experience, I think about the two things that makes Twitch special to me, and hopefully to all of you, and that's the actual connection element and the experience element. We spoke briefly about the connection element and how I feel like that's something that really needs to be worked on. There's a lot of opportunity in that space because there's this inherent lack of connection as a personality becomes larger. But what really makes Twitch special to me is also the experience. When we think about the massive growth of Battle Royale in the last year, it certainly wasn't just because of connection. I mean, these were huge personalities just getting bigger. It was about the experience, the global experience of watching someone and wanting to survive with them. And that's such a powerful motivator. I think there's a huge opportunity in the experience space for Twitch. There's so many crazy cool experiences that each of us go as we try to fulfill our dreams that aren't being live streamed right now. As an entrepreneur, I'll just speak to the most important moment in my life, which is when I got an investment from Disney. Why isn't there a show that covers pitching? You know, we have Shark Tank, one of the most popular shows on ABC. Why don't we have live investors and have people pitch them, and have Twitch be able to play a role in that? Get Twitch to be able to decide which concepts they think are coolest, drive traffic directly to those websites live. There's so many incredible opportunities in our everyday lives, the most exciting moments that aren't being captured live, and I think that that is a huge growth period for the viewer experience. So more about the experience, more focusing on what a viewer makes a viewer feel alive. That would be my perspective on how to improve things. Thank you. Oh yeah, I'm sure people will be fascinated. Do you want to give me 20% of your income? Because if you do, I got a talk show for you. Come join. No, but I do think actually that one of our competitors, OPG, great guys, fantastic in the industry. They have a talk show about a lot of the challenges that face, budding broadcasters, and it's fascinating watching every segment, not just because they're my competitors, but because they're also my friends. And what I'm learning is that there's a huge demand for knowledge about these kinds of information. Every time I say knowledge, I'm reminded of Ty Lopez, knowledge. But I do think it's extremely important that they're an educational podcast, but what I'm speaking to a little bit more is the experience, less of learning and more of living with other people. I think that when we take the most impactful moments in every person's life, when we film that and live stream it, that gets really exciting. If you guys were listening to the news, you may have noticed that a celebrity went skydiving yesterday, 2 days ago, live streamed the whole experience. Will Smith, right, on YouTube. And it was one of the most watched events live ever because it was such an exciting experience that people got to enjoy with that personality. So I think that's a little bit more focused, where the podcast is more about connection and that one-on-one engagement. Experiences are more focused on the mass appeal.
And to kind of to build off that a bit, even when you think about traditional sports, I mean, the greatest fan stickiness is when you get into kind of the human interest stories, the backstories of the players. It's like, you know, I never played Little League, but I watched that World Series of Little League. It's like those kids are so cute and the crazy parents, and so I think that it's inevitable that it not only is it like our human desire to have that more intimate, to your point, kind of understanding of all these different stakeholders in the greater kind of gaming kind of ecosystem, but I think that will be an opportunity to make the trajectory for esports even greater by starting to really know not just a handful of these professional players or insights into the everyday gamer player, but to have that be more universal.
I think you're bang on, actually. I've never watched curling in my entire life. I've never rooted for anybody in curling, but you watch that emotionally manipulative, like, human interest piece at the beginning. We're actually trying to do something similar. We're actually gonna, we have individual Twitch channels for players. During the course of the game, they're live streaming from the helmet cam, they'll be mic'd up, and then we're actually gonna feed them Twitch chat comments, right? And so as people are talking smack, they can actually answer back, and you can actually view certain skilled players from their first person perspective. So I think you guys are all bang on as far as that intimate experience with the creators.
I want to talk to that point, because that's super cool. One of the things I'm most excited about this year on Twitch is the fact that tournaments are finally starting to showcase the individual competitors' perspectives. I never liked watching a few commentators talk about a game. I wanted to watch the one personality I wanted to root for play that game. And seeing you guys do that, that's an incredible viewer experience, but it also touches in on the connection element. So I think it's a win across both of those two elements that make Twitch special.
So interesting, right? Because like everything that the panel has mentioned so far dovetails into the next question regarding content. So I heard everything from like real-time interaction to the core game content that you have with like UGC, or you're starting to see like shoulder content, perspective content, IRL content, which seems like if you look at Twitch, like one of the things that we're seeing as well is that we push content to your platform, IRL. It's like top 5, right? Like who would think that in IRL is a top 5 content category on Twitter? So we're seeing, just the topic of content, right? And the specific question we have for content is this: like, what content do you think makes the at-home viewing experience just as compelling as the real world?
So there was just a great experience at Face It London. They had a premium pass. They worked with GenVid as well on Twitch, and it did a lot of what you had mentioned, the individual players' perspective, a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. It had custom chat rooms that you can go and actually segregate into even more like-minded people to have conversations that might be relevant to them. So there was a lot of shoulder wrap, there was a lot of behind-the-scenes, there was a lot of that custom experience for the community. If they so chose, it was optional. Again, I'm a big fan of options. So I think that's, as we move in and as people create great tools for content, it's not only Twitch, it's any live broadcasting platform, right? If they create the tools for it. But it's that, even better than being live in an audience, because you're not gonna go backstage. 10,000 people in a stadium aren't gonna go backstage and chat with somebody. So it's as good, or sometimes, depending on your perspective, maybe even better.
It's way better. I think we are past that tipping point. We're building our whole league.
I was being kind.
I'm just saying, it is so. building a whole league from the ground up for the digital fan. I think, like, show of hands, have you guys been to an NFL game recently? How? Anybody prefer going to NFL games rather than being like at home and watching it? Okay, I appreciate that. There's something rad about being there. I agree. There's an atmosphere.
We have NFL Thursday.
Yeah, yes, you do, and it's awesome. Like, I think small technological advances like the yellow line, which, by the way, that guy sold that company for $30 million, so that's another thing. So the yellow line, like, just knowing where that first down is in real time, like, I want to watch that at home, and I think our whole, from the ground up, we are building this, because I think that, like, we're doing things like, for example, we're gonna have the Madden cam, the whole thing is gonna be streamed by drones, so you'll be able to actually follow along like you're playing Madden, and I think from the, again, I think there is no, the technology has put us in a position where, like, the at-home viewing experience is better now, and it's going to continue to get even better with interaction, overlays, all of these things. I don't even think it's close.
Please don't make an extension that allows our community to fly the drones.
We toyed with the idea of weaponizing it, but that wasn't a
Please
great
no.
idea.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I don't think I ever wanted to watch golf growing up, but it's pretty interactive and exciting these days. And I did go to a nice golf tournament about a year ago, and I didn't see anything. It was no fun at all. So yeah, I agree with you that I think it's a completely different interactive experience in the technology and the intimacy that we can create. And I do love too the player view that you mentioned, because what's nice about that is that then what we do almost bring into being by making that person real. There's also a different layer of behaviors and accountability that happens. So even if everyone is dispersed at home and participating through both, our platform or other platforms, it still is kind of better, more humanized gameplay, which I think is good.
Which golf tournament did you go to?
GA at Riviera Country Club.
The one in Phoenix.
And I did stay at the bar most of the time and watch it on TV.
Yeah, like the one in Phoenix is the same way. You just drink the entire time. And they have that one hole where you can trash talk, though. Highly recommended if you're in Phoenix and want to watch PGA. It's pretty great.
So I think about the at-home viewing experience as a few subcategories, and I consider the in-person viewing experience as one subcategory, like you're there at the event, right? When we think about at-home viewing experience, it's a little bit different. You have the at-home by yourself, you have the at-home and engaging, and then you have your with your friends at-home experience. What you guys are doing with Madden is the at-home with your friends, or your at-home and engaging experience. Twitch as a whole tends to fall into at-home and engaging because you have access to Twitch chat. But keep in mind that when you're watching something with your friends, it's extremely different than when you're engaging with Twitch chat. You're not going to have one guy at the keyboard typing. When you're with your friends, you're going to be watching as a group. So understanding those subcategories, I'd say that they're very different from the in-person experience. And I personally prefer the at-home experience. I think most people who watch Twitch do, but I also think that that may be changing fairly soon as Twitch becomes far more mainstream. It used to be a bunch of us nerds watching Twitch alone because we didn't leave our mother's basements, and now it's becoming something that we do with friends, and soon it will be more comparable and have more of an audience of people who do enjoy the in-person experience. So I think the biggest challenge is how can we mimic the in-person experience for that audience that desires it. When we think about golf, they've done a really good job of making the in-person experience feel that way when you're watching TV, right? And of course, when it comes to golf, you certainly don't want to do it in person because you can't say shit, pardon my language, as you just said. So when we think about that challenge specifically, I think that it's less about the overlays and the background, and it's more about what makes it fun to watch. When you're in person, there's this incredible connection element. Everyone's going wild, you can't hear your own heartbeat, it's absolutely crazy. But when you're at home, in your PJs, is that as fun to watch? And where Twitch chat makes the difference is you engage with an audience, but what if there was the capability to engage with a group of people watching something at the same time? A lot of times people have said, what if there was just Twitch chat for TV? Well, I think Twitch is moving towards that with more custom content and the new Pokemon special they've been running. But what about watching and engaging with other fans through Skype chat while you watch something, or Discord groups? We're seeing this happen naturally, but it hasn't been organized at all. And I'd love to see that element organized so you can have the communal experience at home.
One more cool thing about watching it on a live broadcasting platform instead of being live is the NBA G League is a good example on Twitch, right? If you go and watch it live, you have these 65-year-old retired players kind of giving you the dry commentary. If you watch it on Twitch, we have our broadcasters. We worked with the NBA and made sure our broadcasters were broadcasting, that understood the vernacular of our community, knew when to get really excited and troll a bit, right? So it resonated more deeply because, again, it was by somebody that really understood the community and their habits, and most importantly, the vernacular. So I think that's really, really cool. I'm hoping as we move forward, more content will come on and have that dichotomy between traditional linear broadcasting and having people speak in a way that's appropriate and represent that content in a way that's appropriate for maybe not the Twitch community, but that broadcaster's community. So that, I think, is super interesting.
Thank you. As a follow-up to that, so hearing that theme of like the experience and engaging the community, like as technology improves in the space, right? Like how important is it, do you think, that before we're seeing latency times of 30 seconds plus, and now it's moving more and more to real time as technology improves. How important is it, like, as the experience of watching live content with that real time interaction goes into like sub 1 second and near real time is being there? What are you seeing and what are your thoughts? Like, I just want to quick call.
To me, that's easy. It's the lower latency, the better the continuity of thought and discussion. And that to me is all important. Continuity is king for me for storyline, conversations, everything. So low latency is absolutely better. But of course, a lot of broadcasters on Twitch like to put delays on so they don't get stream sniped. So where do you balance the competitive nature of these top players versus an entertainer that maybe might make a living off of the joke around they're always stream sniped, right? So
Happy to represent a lot of the people who play Hearthstone and they get stream sniped all the time. I know about that pain. I think that latency is less about the viewing experience for tournaments and that kind of stuff, and far more about the connection with more of a talk show host or something like that. When you're watching a tournament, 12 seconds of latency, 30 seconds of latency is going to affect your experience because the commentators aren't going to notice your chat comment anyways, right? Or the streamer may not if they're playing a game like PUBG or Hearthstone. But when we talk about talk shows where you actually communicate with chat, we talk about that second level, the communication element, the connection element. That's where latency plays the most important role. Lower latency means you can have a real dialogue with your fan rather than waiting 30 seconds, then answering a question, waiting 30 seconds, then answering a question.
Good. So, Maurice, how are we doing time before we move on to the next topic? Still good? Yes. Okay, great. Moving on to the topic of monetization. Right? So, I mentioned, like, at least for what we're doing on the Mobcrush side, like, we've opened up a platform called Academy, and it's the ability to connect brands with these content creators in the space to be able to reach audiences where they prior to maybe harder to reach, right? So and when we opened that up like a couple months ago for data, we're seeing a huge surge. And I'm sure one here, everyone's thoughts, right? Because the appetite for brands connecting with these audiences, and what are we doing as stakeholders and players in the ecosystem? The specific question here is this: like, how do we think brands can engage with gamers across esports, with Twitch, and across multiple platforms? So I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, if 2-3 years ago you were an investor wanting to get on esports, your options were to invest in a professional esports team. And if you were a brand, that's the same train of thought that you usually use, that there were very limited avenues or options. But as we've been talking about today, this is a very wide, vast ecosystem. And so, what we found is because Super League has really tried to wrap a very positive wrapper around the brand to say that we stand for safe, fair, and inclusive gameplay. It's really brought in a lot of non-endemics, which we're excited about. We have sponsorships with companies like Mattel and Nickelodeon for our youth league product. Nickelodeon and Viacom are even investors in us. And you think, well, why would they do that? Well, obviously we're a giant content company in a lot of ways. But again, pretty much every kid watching Nickelodeon is a gamer. But Nickelodeon's not going to slap their precious orange logo and all that slime on, a professional esports team. But, all of these brands have interest in reaching this kind of elusive gaming audience, this Gen Z millennial, and certainly even harder to reach youth, the under 13 market. And so I think for us, we've just found that there's a lot of brands who are looking for deep engagement. We don't bring in, it's early days for us. We don't have millions of eyeballs. So if a CMO wants to talk to me and put down a rate card and look for that kind of an ROI calc, we're not the right brand for them. But we can give them almost a perfect, direct bullseye target in reaching the exact audience they want by age group, by genre of game, by region. And in doing so, also create a pretty intimate dialogue. I will say the one thing that the word I don't like using with brands anymore, and it just seems like gets overused, is the authenticity word. Because the problem with the word is, of course, if you're a CMO, you want to have meaningful, relevant engagement. But it almost implies that, and of course you don't want to treat any of your brands like a NASCAR car and just slap logos everywhere. But it also implies still, like, we talk about gamers like they're just this scary group out there. And I just keep coming back to everybody's a gamer. You go to a Dodger game, you see an American Airlines, sign up there. You don't sit there and say, what are they doing here? How dare they? If everybody's a gamer, then everybody's pretty much going to get on a plane at some point. So, there's just no reason why certain verticals or non-endemic should treat this like it's this kind of scary, elusive group. And it's really important that we feel like we play a role in kind of reframing how people want to interact with gamers and kind of look at the audience and see the richness of diversity of who they are.
I was going to say authenticity. No. So just the distinction there would be like, I think you hit everything right. I think it's working with partners like Super League. It is deep engagement, and then I don't think authenticity in the sense that there are certain brands that shouldn't be there, but I think as gamers, we've all been marketed to gamers are extreme. I think there's a gross vibe, the gamer grubs and all of these people who are trying to force their products in a way that they wouldn't organically fit. And I think that's when people say authenticity, that's what I think about. What is the right fit for your product and that right demo? But I agree, we're all gamers, and there is a right fit, but finding that right fit.
So with brands, I like to focus on two things: educating them on the unique data sets that we have in our industry. We have qualitative and quantitative data behind the experience and engagement factor. On Twitch, we use average viewed minutes per person per day on the content, and also how much they chat in the chat. Last year, we were the second most engaged community on the internet. The first was Netflix at 109 minutes per person per day. We were at 106 minutes. Netflix had 40 million subscribers at that time. We had, I believe, 120 million. This year, we're, again, almost, I would say over 200 million active users now. I haven't looked at the latest data set, but we're now number one at almost 2.5 hours a day of content. And I believe some crazy number, like 1 billion chat messages a minute, which is just nuts. The second thing, I never use the word authentic. I like the word appropriate. So I always tell people, we have a custom solutions team at Twitch, and their job is to work with brands and work with our broadcasters and create engaging, appropriate content. Worked with Taco Bell with a couple of our broadcasters, Old Spice. We even had an activation where 2 people were playing games for, I believe it was Red Bull maybe, and we took a bucking bronco and took the bronco off and put the couch on it, and the Twitch chat controlled at various moments when they would get the crucial parts of the game. They just start bucking it and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And the capstone of everything, has everybody seen the Dr. Disrespect G Fuel? Yo, that was so good. So this is again, qualified people knowing how to match appropriate broadcasters, creating appropriate content for a brand to more deeply engage and resonate with the target audience. I just think that's really the way to go when it comes to talking to brands about what the value of this industry is. I remember I used to get very, very angry whenever I would be around brands that wanted to buy into this space, and they really severely undersell us, and they'd stick to their guns and say, but it's video games. I'm like, do I look like I'm don't know the industry? Why don't we talk data and demographics? Come back to me when you have a clue or you want to treat me with some respect.
So this is a question that I can spend a long time answering, which is why it's the last question on that list. Okay, I'll be quick. We've talked a lot about appropriate brand lift. I'm going to tell you about what I think are the three categories of brand lift. There is short-term, long-term, and I guess there's four: appropriate and inappropriate. When we think about brands entering the space, there's a few ways they do this. One would be a short-term strategy. That could be something like the Broncos. I love that, by the way. It was so much fun to watch. I know, it would have been great. The other is a long-term, that's like sponsoring an esports team, or maybe having a logo for your aircraft carrier at a kids event, something like that. But when we think about appropriate versus inappropriate, appropriate would be something that really resonates with the audience, and inappropriate would be more of a blunt approach. We've got a lot of clients who don't know which to go with, and you might think, why would you ever want inappropriate marketing? The reason is simple. Sometimes you can tap into the global consciousness on Twitch, get a huge audience of people who absolutely detest your marketing, but it can be effective nonetheless. So I know a lot of brands have actually tried that second approach to some success, and I think everyone here has touched about how you can build long-term relationships with fans, but because of Twitch's interconnected community, you can also sometimes get a lot of advocates by being pretty blunt and aggressive with your approach. And no one else discussed that, so I wanted to mention it a little bit. In terms of trends that we're seeing in the space and how brands are trying to connect with their fans in the influencer space, influencers are taking a lot more precedent than they used to because of that term you hate, authentic communication, right? Outside of appropriate communication or inappropriate communication, it's important to work with people who have a voice in the industry. As fans, whether or not we hate a product, we trust the people that we watch. So if you choose appropriate or inappropriate communication, if it's pushed by a personality with a big fan base, it can be effective nonetheless.
One thing I want to first clarify, I do want it to be authentic, but I feel that really to what Garvey was saying, CMOs trying to get in on the space use that word almost as a way to not have an open mind about the space. To me, it's kind of like, to your point, let's roll our sleeves up here, because I want to first educate you on who this audience is. So that's the reason why the word, I think, is being used as a barrier that I'd like to pull down. And to your point about long-term, because again, it's early days for us. I mean, all of our brand partners are taking the long view on us, clearly, because we're not bringing them millions and millions of players right now. But if you think about like our relationship with Red Bull, it is a multi-year, long-term relationship. We had a desire to take and find the best, 50 or so players with each of our game titles and almost bring them out to showcase them in an all-stars type weekend. And that's what Red Bull got behind. For Logitech, it's actually really about the fact of the importance of the coaching and learning that has to happen around our leagues. And so they're a part of our product roadmap, not just, kind of putting their logo in certain places, which is cool for us because it's a real strategic partnership.
I had something fun to say about inappropriateness. We had Saturday Night Live marathons on Twitch. It was the older content, the Jim Belushi, Eddie Murphy content. Totally inappropriate for where we are right now. But the Twitch chat made it so much. They trolled and they made jokes on the jokes so hard. I was in tears. Anytime I was watching, I was in tears. Not by the content that was on it, but the reaction to the content, the troll nature of it, and the jokes that were being made on the jokes. It was just nuts. I was in tears. I had to shut it off at one point. My cheeks hurt so bad that I needed to like just not watch it anymore.
I just wanted to add real quickly before we move on to the inappropriate element. You know, we promote a lot of mobile games. If you're an influencer marketing, you know mobile games spend a lot of money. And the whales, right? And you think about Twitch audience, these guys use ad block. They always complain about free-to-play versus pay-to-play models. And yet, when we do these big promotions of mobile games, of course there's a bunch of backlash, but it becomes a meme in the community where people troll on the influencer playing these games. And when you look at the back end in terms of conversions, it's really high because someone later will be sitting on the toilet, doesn't have anything to do, and they'll download the game. So that kind of inappropriate promotion, where it becomes almost the content creator versus his audience, can be quite effective in some ways.
We actually give bits to people that watch ads on Twitch. I don't know if anybody knows that. So I think that's pretty cool. Again, it's an option. You could use ad block, right? Most of the revenue for our broadcasters basically come in from that free Twitch Prime sub. And a lot of people don't run ads, but we will reward people for watching ads and supporting people and brands that support our platform and the broadcasters who earn a living and pay their bills and feed their kids on our platform. So I think that was a really cool initiative that Twitch had put in.
It's very cool. I just want to thank Maurice and FanVest for having us because this man's getting a little anxious, but thank you so much. This has been unbelievable. You guys have been great. Thank you so much.